Joining us to break down all these numbers is the New York State Director of NFIB, Mike Elmendorf. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Liz, for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, so let's first, before we get into the scores and where they went, et cetera, let's just say overall what your methodology is here.
Right. Well, it's pretty simple, actually. I mean, we are out there every day advocating for our members on issues that we think are going to impact their business. And we let the legislature know where we stand on these issues. And if you look at some of the issues that are on this voting record, these aren't nitpicky little bills. These are sort of big, broad impacting issues. We let the legislature know where we stand, and we make it clear to them why we think this is going to impact our members. In this case, we have 11 bills, 10 of which we oppose, which says something about the kind of session this was for the small business agenda, one that we supported. And then we take, and there's a lot more bills that we took positions on. There's probably about 70 in the course of the last 2-year period. These are sort of the key ones that we think are the most important votes and the votes that most clearly demonstrate where a legislator was on small business issues, and that's how they're graded. So it's a pretty straightforward, transparent process.
So the number one is actually the budget, which you advocated a no vote on this.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a no-brainer. Last year's budget was the largest tax increase in New York State history, more than $8 billion in new and increased taxes and fees, the biggest spending increase in New York State history. All of this happening during the worst economy since the Great Depression. It led to higher income taxes on small business owners, higher health insurance premiums, higher energy rates. I mean, I think, honestly, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in the state who's not paying more because of that budget vote.
But this is not because of, this is not this year. When we're talking about the grades that you're giving.
This is a 2-year period.
Right. Okay.
This is this legislature, the group that was elected in the last general election cycle for the state.
Okay, got it. All right, so what we're also looking at, just to let some people know what we're looking at, for example, in 07-08, the paid family leave bill, which is a big issue, and that passed the Assembly. There was never a Senate vote on that. Now, that was when the Republicans were still in charge, right? There, in addition, now this is all, again, 07-08, there was Upstate Now, which was an economic development program of tax cuts, tax credits, and economic development tools. Obviously, this is something you guys would support. Passed the Senate 54-3, again, controlled by the Republicans. No vote in the Assembly where the Democrats were in control. That's 2 years ago. Now, we go to 2009-2010. We just mentioned the budget, but other things that are on here would be unemployment insurance laws, changes that would allow individuals to voluntarily quit their employment for compelling family reasons. That is something that you wanted to a no vote on.
That was an interesting vote. There was exactly one member of the legislature who voted no on that.
Yeah, who was it?
Assemblyman Mike Fitzpatrick from Long Island, who is going to be honored as one of our guardians of small business for casting that vote.
For this vote, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very interesting. He is, wow, that's true. It passed the Senate 61-0 and the Assembly 142-1. I guess no one was listening to you on that particular topic.
Well, Mike Fitzpatrick was, and we thank him for it.
And then let's see, what's another one that people might be interested in? The ability of individuals to bring citizen lawsuits for alleged violations to the environmental conservation law, exposing small business owners to costly and potential baseless lawsuits. This is a no vote for you guys.
And that's an interesting vote because, you know, you talked about paid family leave. Under 2 years ago, the way we used to win on issues is often something that we oppose just wouldn't be advanced in the Senate.
Well, because you have ties. I mean, we should probably disclose that you are a Republican and you worked in the Pataki administration.
Well, I think, you know, my own politics are not really relevant here. We're nonpartisan.
Well, you also were not in charge. You were. When did you take your
I came in 07. Okay. I started in 07.
So you were in this particular session.
Right.
You were.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I think, I mean, backing up a second, I mean, some people might look at this voting record and say this voting record is awfully tough on legislators who are in the majority.
Particularly the Democrats.
Well,
yes.
Those are the legislators who are in the majority.
Right.
The fact of the matter is two things. You can say that, but I think this legislative session has been very tough on employers, small business owners, and taxpayers in the state. It has been a very difficult 2 years for people who are trying to keep their business operating, and there have been a lot of bad votes in Albany. And, you know, it's not totally one-sided. Assemblyman Robin Schimminger from Buffalo, who has been a long-time defender of the small business agenda, did well on our voting record.
Well, in part, though, I mean, I know you can't divorce policy from politics because it's just not possible, in part because all of these people get elected in a political process.
Sure.
But Robin Schimminger, for example, comes from Buffalo, which tends to be a more conservative part of the state, even if you are a Democrat. I mean, what we're going to see in a second when we pop some of these grades up on the screen is that now the Senate is controlled largely by downstate Democrats, and that really has a very big impact on how the agenda gets moved in the Senate.
Absolutely.
So let's just take a look at this is a pretty interesting graphic of how things change changed for a couple of key lawmakers. Here we go. So we see Auburtine, that would be Darrell Auburtine in the 48th Senate District, Bill Stikowski. He is out there in the Buffalo area. Dave Valesky, Craig Johnson, and Brian Foley. So look at that change here. What are we seeing, if you would just describe it to us?
Well, numbers that are a lot worse. I mean, Senator Auburtine didn't have enough votes in the previous voting record to have a voting record with us. Senator Stikowski did, Senator Valesky did. We endorsed Senator Valesky the last time out. Obviously, that's not nearly as good a score this time as there was the last time, and I think it reflects that this has been a very different session for the small business agenda in Albany. It's been much worse.
Actually, I just realized Auburtine came in an 08 special election. Johnson came in an 07 special election. There we go. So, all right. These are targets, these guys. We call them marginals in Albany. These are targets of the Republicans. And obviously, you are seeing some real discrepancies in their voting, particularly for Dave Valesky. What do you make of that?
It's disappointing. I mean, you know, again, Senator Valesky is someone who we supported the last time around. And he's someone who we've worked with. I mean, we have a good relationship with Senator Valesky. He's helped us on a number of issues. Something that I think is worth noting, and the same is true with Senator Stikowski and Senator Auburtine, they voted against one of the bills you talked about before, which was the environmental citizen suit bill. That bill actually went down to defeat on the floor, which is a sort of new experience for all of us in Albany. That doesn't really happen historically here, that if there's a vote and a bill is defeated. It's actually nice to see it happen once in a while. They did the right thing on that bill. They left you know, the rest of their conference and voted against a bill that we opposed and stopped it. And they've helped us on a number of other issues. They voted down the farm labor bill last week, which was a terrible bill, not on this voting record because it came too late for our deadline. But you know, at the end of the day, even though they've helped us on a lot of issues, this is a voting record. It's not a sympathy meter. And there's no way to give credit for having helped us on things behind the scenes. What it comes down to is when a bad bill goes to the floor, and 10 out of these 11 bills are very bad bills. There's no denying it for the small business community. It comes down to whether you vote yes or no. And as you can see, 80% of the time, 3 of those senators, you know, voted the wrong way.
Okay, so then there is a way actually to hold people accountable. We call it an election.
Sure.
And you do make endorsements, and you're about to sit down and look at this and use this as a guide, I would expect, to make those decisions. And what is going to be the outcome? Because there's a possibility, well, we're having a major battle in the Senate for control, and it is a watershed year because, as people who have been watching this show know, redistricting